Shabbos, everybody. Nice to be here. So in this Parsha, Parsha's Bo, we repeat over and over, you shall observe this as an institution for all time, for you and your descendants. So in this Parsha, we learn the complete story of Passover, the rules of removing and not eating leaven, the redemption of the firstborn, the ritual of tefillin, and the remembrance of what the Lord did for the Jewish people are all storied in this Parsha, Parsha's Bo. And for all time, for all generations, and for every Jew. Remembering how for 430 years the ears of God heard the suffering of our ancestors and decided finally to answer their cries. We are to remember as humans that the master architect of the world sees and hears and reacts. Where was God? This is the famous question that we hear throughout history. But just think about this. This struck me as I was reading this. The person that asked that question back in the time of the Exodus, in the 200th year of their enslavement, never realized the answer. But the person who asked that question in the 430th year of slavery saw the answer. Where was God? This is the age-old question, but understanding that the answer can only be realized when redemption takes place. This was the ancient Israelites' liberation. It was the beginning of their purpose. Again, think about it. We ask that question all the time. Where is God? God is here. He sees, he hears, and he reacts. Maybe not in the time frame in which we feel or we understand, but just like the slaves in the 430th year that asked, where was God? God was there. The name the Lord is used throughout this Parsha. That is to denote mercy. But what was the word God used for Pharaoh, as there was certainly no mercy for him or his people? The beginning of the Parsha, chapters 10 and 11, demonstrate that God is unleashing this extreme power of nature to cause the Egyptians a cry that they cried and will not ever then be heard. Before or after, they will never hear that cry again. The last few plagues were very harsh. Locusts, darkness, and the final plague, as we know, the death of the firstborn. God and Pharaoh had severe conflict, severe beef, as I said. In the story of Pharaoh, this is a story that we focus on Pharaoh. And in this particular plague, the plague of locusts, he acknowledges God, right? And he admits his guilt. You'll read, it says, I stand guilty before the Lord and before you. Forgive my offense just this once, and pleaded with the Lord, and he's speaking to Moshe, plead with the Lord that he remove all of this. And Moshe pleads with God, and then a big wind came and all the locusts were gone. That's chapter 10, verse 16 through 19. You can read it. Pharaoh actually admits his guilt. The words are Pharaoh's words, and the scene and the whole encounter, if you could just see, is God and Pharaoh. The Torah does not even give one clue as to what Moses says to God to make him remove all of the plagues or stop the plagues, right? There's nothing. The Torah doesn't talk about the dialogue between Moshe and God, but of God and Pharaoh. The Torah doesn't leave out or add detail just for the sake of padding a story, right? The Torah is telling us in this Parsha and in the Parsha prior to this, based on the plagues, of course in all of it, is to focus on God. Focus on the miracle of the natural wonders. Focus on when man thinks he is godlike, Pharaoh, right? And even has powers to suppress the people and to dictate to society a certain way. He is nothing more than a tyrant. He's no God. Not in man do I trust, nor in angel do I rely, but on the God of heaven, who is the God of truth, whose Torah is truth, whose prophets speak truth, and who abounds in acts of love and truth. In him I trust. This Parsha wants you to focus on God, and using Pharaoh as the relationship to make you feel that. These are life-changing events, and they are all imprinted on an all-encompassing character of God, because every single human emotion deployed in this Parsha, you have anger, you have jealousy, you have mercy, you have love, you have fighting, you have bullying, you have dominance. It was a real fight between Pharaoh and God was going to mark the final bout, this final fight, with the beginning of new months, as it was now going to be the first of the months of the year. That's in chapter 12. All the wondrous acts, the date or the winner, it will never be forgotten. Possibly their doubters or people in whatever year of tyranny they suffer do not believe there is really a master orchestrator of the world. Just think today, in our world, we know the story of Exodus. We know Parshas Bo from our childhood, and we will retell this story until our death, because as it is repeated in the Torah, you shall observe this as an institution for all time, you and your descendants. We are to remember what God did for us in Egypt so that we can go forward and remember all the good that comes behind the bad. Am Yisrael Chai.
Page 370.